Yes, and that's what she was talking about. Ashley, right?
Yep.
Ashley, her name's Ashley. What's your name?
But we're supposed to save some for with the mushroom, so you can work on that for the mushroom.
I love the music.
Anytime I get anything about school lunches, it's never time to go.
This is Peak Moment. We are living at a peak of human innovation, information, wealth, and health. But we're also at a peak of population and consumption, with rising temperatures and declining resources fueled by cheap oil and gas. Peak Moment Television, bringing you examples of positive responses to energy decline and climate change through local community action.
Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson. A few weeks ago, Robin and I had great fun at a community kitchen in the Wallingford neighborhood of Seattle. I'm here back at the same place, the Wallingford Community Senior Center, with some of the perpetrators. I'm with Rachel Duboff, who was our kitchen coordinator that day. Is that the right word? Kitchen coordinator?
Correct. Yep.
Who's also a personal chef. Obviously somebody who loves food, and it showed. And I'm with Kathleen Cromp. Thanks for joining me. Kathleen is the executive director of the Wallingford Community Senior Center and a member of the Community Kitchen's Northwest Steering Committee. So we had a great time. We prepped food, we cooked food, we ate food together with folks in your neighborhood. It was a really fun evening. And I want folks to know, what is a community kitchen?
Well, first of all, thank you. It was great to have both of you at the event. Great puttanesca that night. A community kitchen is a way of bringing people together to learn new ways about healthy eating and cooking, to share resources and ideas, and as importantly, to build community. It is a model that actually came about, interestingly enough, in the 60s as a community development model in South America. I think it was Peru, but it could have been Chile. And it was sort of center to the community development movement at that point in time. I don't know kind of exactly how it's evolved, other than it has taken off internationally and has really taken hold in a very full and rich way in Canada in particular. And so our efforts locally have really borrowed heavily from what's happening in British Columbia, where there are about 350 organized community kitchens supported by kind of a growing organization that's connected to their food bank society.
To their food bank. Oh, that's a nice way to bring
and with
things
tremendous
together.
government support for it as well.
Yeah.
Well, it's a way to feed folks who might not otherwise get healthy meals, like or be more isolated. Tell me what's behind all that.
Well, Rachel, sort of fill in a little bit about what we know about British Columbia. So community kitchens can take different forms. And when we talk about our kitchen here, you'll see that we have one variation sort of in a particular way that works for this community, but locally there are different ways. In Vancouver, there are a lot of community kitchens that have a particular focus. It might be seniors, it might be young parents who are learning to sort of prepare sort of whole food and healthy food for their kids. But the idea is that they come together, they cook together, there might be a kitchen leader, they share resources, and they take food home. So they prepare and then they take home food to freeze or save in some kind of way. And our model's a little sort of a variation for that. I think the one comment I would make about British Columbia is, and the linkage to the food bank, is that they, I think, have a more cohesive approach to their whole food system. And that's something I think that in these times in particular, sort of as we think about community resilience and where we need to be going, kind of, I think that at least in the Seattle area, our food system is more fragmented and not connected. But this is maybe a way of starting to pull some pieces together.
And a fun one, I would add.
The energy is fabulous.
You could tell that. It's like the buzz in the room was just so exciting. give us a flavor, since you coordinated the one that we attended. So tell us your role. Tell us about this community kitchen.
Sure. Well, this community kitchen is unique in some ways, but I think every community kitchen is unique. It's reflective of the leader.
Sure.
And I happen to play the role of leader, and as I affectionately tell our group on a regular basis, I'm really a coordinator. You know, I'm there to make sure it goes smoothly, but it's a community-led effort, and that's a really important point. So we're ensuring that we use all the resources that are available to us, and so when someone has an expertise, we want them to bring that to the table. When someone, and literally bring it to the table, but we're also, you know, if someone plays guitar or sings, they're as welcome to participate, because the idea of a community kitchen, and this is my world of community kitchen, it's the only place I can speak from, is that it is about bringing communities together via food. Food is a universal language. I just got back from a wonderful trip in Italy where I didn't speak a lot of Italian, but we were unified by the language of food. And that's a really important kind of message that we try to have within the kitchen, is that the kitchens are reflective of the community. And so there are seniors, there are people with young children, there are teenagers present, there are people who have, they don't tell me and they show up and they previously worked as a caterer for 20 years, and boy, the pressure's on, 'cause I want to make sure my recipes are great. Yeah, absolutely. But then, you know, we have people who are really novices in the kitchen and don't have a lot of skills. And so the purpose of the kitchen is really to bring all those resources together and have collaboration. The Wallingford Community Kitchen is very specifically about having a shared meal. Very important to the Wallingford Community Kitchen. And we arrived at the model for the community kitchen in Wallingford through, I took over leadership of the kitchen last year. It was previously run by Kathleen.
So 2009?
2009, yes.
Yeah, okay, right. Okay.
Something like that.
I don't know
year.
what year is this. I attended a Sustainable Wallingford meeting and met the coordinator at that meeting, and just happened to mention that I was a chef, fairly new to the neighborhood, and I really wanted to get to know my neighbors.
Wow, perfect.
And immediately they said, we have an idea for you. We need a new leader for our community kitchen. And so I came on board. I led my first community kitchen without ever having attended a community kitchen. Thankfully, I also teach cooking classes, so I knew that piece of it. And I've done some community organizing in the past, and so I didn't want to presume that I knew what people wanted. I knew a little bit about what the historical makeup of the community kitchen in Wallingford had been. I talked to a few other community kitchen leaders. And we decided that our first kitchen was going to be bring an ingredient for the soup pot, and then we were going to just have a really wonderful conversation. We designed a questionnaire and addressed why people wanted to be in participation with community kitchens. And we addressed things like, should we have meat, should we not have meat? Should we focus on local ingredients? Are people, and really what we were wanting to find out is, did people want to make food to take home, which is a very typical model for the community kitchens, both locally and internationally. Did they want to learn skills? Did they want to meet their neighbors? Did they want to get recipe ideas and training? Or did they want to share a meal? Or maybe some combination therein, and you know, we're trying to promote local producers. I mean, there were so many different objectives that we looked at, and the resounding answer we got was people wanted to get to know their neighbors.
Great.
So the community piece is really so important, and has been actually from the very beginning. I'll just do a little bit of sort of prelude to what Rachel is describing. So I had found out about this idea through other contacts in community organizations, and a little bit of kind of the early ideas of community kitchens here locally. and a nurse in public health who was really promoting this idea, and thought it was really a great fit for this small nonprofit organization and in the context of this community. And so we tried a few things here. It's overstated that I was the lead for the kitchen, but I think I kept the little spark alive, and I would joke and say if I could only quit my day job and do just this, we could make it work.
Boy, it takes work.
And we really, we tried kind of just a simple potluck idea. We tried having a theme. We did applesauce one night. We actually, before Rachel got here, we did plum butter and plum chutney with 200 pounds of plums that were locally gleaned. It happened to be on my birthday, and it was the best birthday ever with 17 people in the kitchen. So I think we were experimenting, which I think is really important as kitchens evolve. But what really was the key that helped this community kitchen to lift off was having a strong kitchen leader / coordinator, and also the critical mass of participants, because you need really both of those. So I think of Rachel as both leader, coordinator, sort of idea generator, and facilitator. She's sort of the grand facilitator of this this thing that we're trying to do, and making space for everybody to use their skills and to feel comfortable and to feel like it's a safe environment where they can kind of step forward and take part. And it's been magic this past year.
And it's been a work in progress.
And will continue to be.
I expect it will be. I mean, it's organic, right?
Well, yes. I mean, and that was again, it was important to us, is that we knew it shouldn't be Rachel's kitchen, Kathleen's kitchen. This was the Wallingford Community Kitchen, and I made a goal when I first started that I wanted to have as big an impact as possible. And sometimes you shouldn't wish those things out loud.
Because it might happen.
It might happen. And so, and I also just really wanted it to be as inclusive as we possibly could. And the idea being that no one should be turned away, that no one should have not be able to participate for any reason. So whether that be because it's a senior who doesn't want to drive at night, so arranging transportation to get them home after an event, someone with young kids, and doesn't have a partner maybe to participate, or maybe they do. So we have people who will come with young kids. We had one woman arrive, and she strapped her baby to her front, and she was chopping, and I think her daughter was maybe 6 months old at the time, and it was wonderful to see how engaged she got. And we have other people who come with young children, and they don't cook, but they still participate.
That's part of the spirit of what we enjoyed that day. There was a little 2-year-old who was just playing ball with everybody who would play, and
he's a regular attendee. He's a good eater.
It's like, well, and he's also finding out about the joy of community and other people really early on. I want to go back to some specifics here about it. Take us on a visit to one of your community kitchens, and I'm going to start by saying a community kitchen is not a place.
No. It is not a place.
It is an event.
Yes.
And
but the place is important too.
And it happens in a place. But your place here at the senior community center here is used for other things as well.
Absolutely.
Right. That's what that's amazing. It's a kitchen and tables and a space to work. And it's something you schedule on some frequent basis. So take our viewers through, like, the day that we all came.
Absolutely.
What happens? I mean, we came in, and I want to add that I noted that you made it possible that people are asked to donate $10 for the event, which is going to pay for some of the food and so on and the space, but no one was required. If they didn't have that, they could still be there.
What we do is we try to have some scholarship money available, so we ask people who have money available if they can donate additional. And we always just try to keep it a low enough cost that it could be anyone could participate. But we also will find jobs for people. We're creative.
That's good.
And we had one person who contacted me for that particular event, and she'd never attended, and she's on food stamps. And she said, I can't afford to pay, but I do have the ability to purchase food, and so I just sent her a few ingredients.
Great.
And she showed up with ingredients, and I mean, there's just always a way to participate.
So take us there. I mean, I wanted the picture because it was so delicious, actually.
So we have sort of a year-long calendar with themes that are tied to the season for the most part. It evolves a little bit month to month, and but that has been in large part because of sort of Rachel's sort of being able to help give us guidance about kind of what the menu focus should be. So that's actually one thing. So the one that you were at was seasonally
tomatoes, and more tomatoes.
despite the sort of sorry summer and
even though the local tomatoes weren't wonderful, we had wonderful tomatoes.
They were local tomatoes,
and they were
yes, they were just hard to come by. So but that's an aside entirely.
So we did tomatoes, and you walk into your room and there's tables. Tell us.
Yeah, and we originally started out, we have a fairly large, we're fortunate, we have a commercial kitchen that we work out of, and it's a decent sized space. But we've had as many as almost 50 people participate in the past, and our typical attendance is around the 30, 35 person mark. And that's just frankly too many people to be in a kitchen. And this is part of our evolution, is we identified that when we had everyone in the kitchen, it was just chaos and unsafe. Really unsafe. And so what we've done is we've determined that only certain functions actually need to happen in the kitchen. And this is an idea I borrowed from another group that I've taught with in the past. And we just set tables out. I put out a recipe, letting people know what they're going to be doing at that particular table. And then we put out some basic things. We put out cutting boards and bowls and knives, and then set the ingredients there. And when people arrive, we encourage them that we're not going to cook immediately, because we want people to, they're slowly filtering in, they're finishing up their workday, they're meeting and greeting.
Friday evening.
And so for the new folks, they have to learn where to wash their hands, where they're going to find equipment, a little bit about logistics. And then we just ask them to wander and take a peek at the ingredients, take a peek at the recipes, and decide which recipe that they want to work on.
Okay, all right.
And then I find a person who has participated in the past to make sure we have at least one experienced person at each table.
Smart. Sure.
And
I noticed.
There are recipe leaders. So they don't necessarily know a lot about cooking. They don't necessarily know a lot about that particular recipe. But what they do know is, where do I find the salt if it's not out on the table? Or how do I use the burner in the oven? Or in what's that thing called? The stove. I'm a cook, right? I should know that.
Well, it's questionable in this kitchen, so.
So just some of the basic logistic pieces, because as you can imagine, if there's 45 people there, I can only answer so many questions.
That's right.
And I don't want the kitchens to be dependent on me and my knowledge. It should be really a collaborative process. So people come together. I try to design the menu so it's primarily vegetarian. But we had a real strong, resounding request that we'd like to have some meat represented on the menu. And so we make sure that there's one meat item. So reverse of what typical events are, where it's almost all meat and then you get one vegetarian item, we do the opposite. So we make sure, and that's both so we can satisfy everyone, because we're focusing on health, and then also for budget purposes.
I was going to say, it's going to cost less.
Yeah, and we want to make sure that this, again, it's something that's affordable for everyone. We have one person who is so kindly volunteered to be our dishwashing captain. I know, how lucky are we? And so he's fine with the fact that his role is in the kitchen.
That's nice.
And so each week we know we've got someone who's always in the kitchen and available, answer questions in the kitchen, and then to make sure that there's a momentum, because kitchens get crazy when you don't keep cleaning.
They do.
And when you have 30, as Rachel said, 30 to 35 people in doing sort of prep work, and then because it is a shared meal, we also have the dishes. I mean, it is actually a pretty busy role, and thankfully other people pitch in. We had a moment where we had to say, hold it, you don't go home, the group doesn't go home until we all clean up together.
Right. I can imagine that's really true. You need to make sure.
The two of us were.
With my mother.
Not
With my 78-year-old mother.
The cabbage roll, Kathy's cabbage roll night.
So, because what I saw that night, just as a first-time participant, is you had half a dozen tables spread out with all the ingredients here, and people chopping and cutting and paring, and then a subset of that group were in the kitchen part, doing the cooking, the baking, that kind of prep. So I really saw that you had really worked out not to have the chaos there. And meanwhile, other people were eating chips and talking to each other, which is the community part, which is really lovely.
I happened to, the night that you filmed, I had a cold, and I couldn't not come as the community kitchen coordinator. So, I just took a back seat on the food handling piece of it.
Sure.
And that's something that, it's like, these are people with real lives, and sometimes you want to come because you want to see your friends and your neighbors, but you're tired. Or you have an injury that prevents you from being able to, or the reality is just that the way your life is, you can't cook. But that doesn't mean you don't want to participate. And again, there's a place for everybody.
I can see that somebody could just come and sit. And some people do.
They do,
but
and they're welcomed.
At the end, it was very, very precious. You would rearrange the tables; they'd been cleared of the stuff. You did a potluck style, so people served themselves, and you had the tables there, so people could sit and eat and keep. I mean, the talk never stopped.
No,
all
it
night.
doesn't.
You were really wonderful.
Well, the night that you were there were two people in particular who had sort of, a rough week at work and other stuff going on in their lives, and I had conversations with them, and they actually had talked about the fact that they considered not coming, but they actually knew that they could come and could be just who they were in that space and pitch in to the extent that they could. And I think creating that kind of environment that is an invitation for people, sort of no matter how you're feeling that day and where you're at, is part of the magic of kind of creating this community connection.
And it strikes exactly. That's community, because if you can be not in your best self, but feel, included, be with a human family, be with some people that you know, that's a big gift, especially in a big city.
I wanted to mention one other.
Let me do that. We have about 5 minutes.
Okay.
So we get to wrap it. Go ahead.
I also want to characterize the kitchen here as being nimble. And we've referred to kind of this evolution over time, but this whole thing about everybody was in the kitchen and there was issue of safety and chaos and all that stuff, and it simply took a conversation to be able to make the change to the next kitchen. And Rachel and I sort of commented that night, the next time, where we had these staging tables for menu item by menu item, and it changed the energy because people were able, in sort of groups of 5 and 6 people, to sort of really have conversation and connect. But that's an example about sort of how we can respond and adapt to make it better. So I just really love that, and I think that it will continue to sort of change character, and not in any linear kind of fashion, but really be responsive to sort of what we need to do to make it a really terrific peak experience for people.
Well, that's that adaptability that you're talking about, I think is an essential piece of it. I mean, adapting to what's in season for food, and adapting to the people that are here and to your setting. I mean, it's a model for folks. What I'd love to know in the next 3 minutes here is, if you have advice, some of the stuff that you've learned that you haven't covered yet, for somebody who wanted to start a community kitchen. First of all, a website. Let's get that out here so that people know that they can learn about it.
It is, this is for the kind of local, kind of regional coalition, www.communitykitchensnw.org.
Okay, great. And that has partly your schedule and philosophy and sort of how do you do this?
And some recipes and links to other
Contact
resources.
information for the kitchen
So they could turn to
leaders.
you if somebody wanted to. It's a starting point.
And I'll just say briefly, there are about 12 kitchens locally that have sort of come up in the period of the last 3 years or so, and they're all a little bit different.
Different objectives, different, again, reflective of different communities and different goals within those communities.
What kind of hurdles? I mean, how does one start?
Well, I have
Briefly.
I've got three simple words for what people should do to start. One is learn, visit a community kitchen, and experiment in terms of experiment with what's going to work in your community. So there's information out there sort of locally and through British Columbia, through that community kitchen effort, about how to start a community kitchen, equipment, and all sorts of logistical kinds of things. But visiting one or more gives you a real sense of it, and then you have to go try. So those are the things.
And I think one thing to add to that is it's about developing partnerships. I mean, this is really a joint effort of Sustainable Wallingford, of the Wallingford Community Senior Center, of Community Kitchens Northwest, and then a lot of individuals who really come with their own agendas, but all of them with a mission of collaboration. And I think that's really important to make sure that it isn't about one person, and everyone brings their own objective to it. But that's what makes it unique. That's what makes it a successful effort. I mean, we would not be able to have this kitchen were it not for the Senior Center providing us a host location and a beautiful kitchen to work out of. This wouldn't occur in someone's home.
Yeah, it's too big.
It's too grand. And it would have a very different feeling to it. It wouldn't have a same sense of inclusiveness, because this is somewhat of a ground that's neutral for everyone.
It's a community space.
Yeah, it's a community space.
And this is part of enlivening it.
Whether that's a church or a community center or a senior center, and they exist in all of those locations. But it takes collaboration and partnership.
As you mentioned, I can imagine that collaboration with, say, a gleaning group or a local food producers or somebody's own backyard that has too much. I mean, all of those resources. What a great gift. Thank you. Well,
Thank you.
My hope is that there will be create your community kitchen. I mean, it's like we had such fun and we're so nourished lots of ways, and I think that's what you're doing here is those. I bet some of those connections extend beyond this once a month event that people have.
Absolutely,
and that's building for the long term. Thanks for your work. Keep it going. Keep feeding everyone, including yourselves.
And come back again.
I think I will. Thank you. We'll do that.
Our next kitchen is featuring apples and pears, so 'tis the season.
Apple crisp, apple pie. No, okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you, Kathleen. You're watching Peak Moment, locally reliant living for challenging times. I'm in Wallingford in Seattle with Rachel Duboff and Kathleen Cromp, who are with the Wallingford Community Kitchens. Join us next time.